Hi there, my name is Kevin Tracy and today I'm reviewing a 21 color watercolor brush pen set from Artademy. If you find yourself enjoying this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more. I would be honored if you would join us. In this video, I am using the brushes to create a colorful watercolor painting of the Vader Fortress, which is Darth Vader's lair on Mustafar in the Star Wars franchise. I thought it'd be funny to see a dark, menacing place like this painted in a beautiful scene from a Frank Webb painting, maybe. It's also worth mentioning, if you haven't figured it out yet, that I am not a watercolor painter. I'm not even really a painter. I'm just an artist who was given some toys and I'm seeing what I can create with them. I've never used watercolor brush pens before and I don't really know how you're supposed to use them. And the last time I did anything at all with watercolor before this painting and Monday's live stream was about 20 years ago when I was a freshman in high school. So if I'm doing something stupid or if you have any constructive criticism or advice, please leave a comment so I can improve as an artist and so any young aspiring artist watching this video might not copy my mistakes. So let's get on with it. I unboxed these on my live stream on Monday night, Pixel Art Live, and I painted a enlarged page of the MS Paint comic Painting North Korea Red coloring book. If you want to see what the finished product turned out like, stick around and I'll show you that at the end of this video. Anyway, Artademy is kind of a strange brand. When I first got this, I thought it was a cheap generic brand. The packaging was flimsy, the pens didn't have any colors or anything marked on them. There were no instructions, the company had no website I've been able to find. All they have is a YouTube channel and one single short 45-second video, which is a few short clips of a woman using these brush pens. You got these 21 Artademy watercolor brush pens, and the water brush are retailing on Amazon.com for I think $45. So while they're not exactly the most elite watercolor brush pens on the market, these are not exactly cheap either. My wife actually picked them up for me on Amazon Prime Day, so we got them for about $20. Actually, I think it might have been a little bit less than $20, but it's about the range we paid for them. And for that price, I feel like it's a good deal. For $45, I'm not sure. But my biggest complaint with these Artademy watercolor brush pens is that, as I mentioned already, there's no labels on the pens. At either end of the mostly black pen, there's a little piece of plastic, and it has the color that the pen is supposed to be. The problem is that some of these are really close to each other. In particular, the two lightest orange colors and the red and slightly dark red or red-violet color are impossible to tell what you have just by looking at it. So to know which color I'm using, I have to hold both pens under a bright light to see which is which. Now, I figure this is probably because Artademy ships these pens around the world and yellow can be called Gelb or Char, Armarella, Jolti, Husana, Ki, Nolang. I also know that a lot of artists like to mix and match their sets of pens and markers with different brands and create their own and then they create their own labels using a unique numbering or naming system. So maybe they're just accommodating these international artists. Or maybe they're just trying to be cheap and save a few bucks on the assembly line. Let me know what you think in the comments. I won't make any assumptions myself, but working with the pens, and again, I've never used watercolor brush pens before. I do have to say I am somewhat surprised at how easily I'm able to create something that I feel looks good. I mean, while they're new, I felt like they had a really good flow right out of the brush, which is, and the brush itself is kind of loose for doing precision work like I was doing with the coloring book. I would have preferred something a little bit of a stiffer brush in that case, but they felt really good actually when I was doing freehand on this watercolor paper, which is how I think 99% of watercolor painters would prefer would work. So that's I'm sure fine for that. One concern I did have when I was working with these though is that the pigment is it's really quick to dye the paper, it feels like, and so when it dyes the paper, and it can be really hard to blend that out. And I've noticed I had to use a lot of water, and even then sometimes I couldn't get all the pigment out, so I had to overlap it with more pigment. And that's not terribly surprising, and perhaps it's a problem with all watercolor brush pens because it's condensed pigment. But I wanted to bring it up in case that was something that you were curious about or whatever, or if there's a way to do that, maybe you can tell me how to avoid that. When I was doing the coloring book page on a standard, I used a standard cardstock sheet for that. It was a bigger problem because I had to be really careful about just how much water I was putting on the paper, because that's going to wrinkle a lot faster than this watercolor paper will that you see here. But it was on this watercolor paper here. It's still noticeable. Like, it still does dye it, but it's not as big of a problem because I can put more water and more pigment on. So it wasn't the end of the world if it happened here. It was a bigger deal on that cardstock. It's also worth mentioning, and I'm starting to feel like the black brush pen is like running low on pigment already, and I used some very vibrant colors on the coloring book page, so maybe that's why, because I put too much pigment down on there. But I went through it a lot faster than I kind of thought it should. Now, granted, with all the pigment I was putting down on the coloring book page, that might be an extraordinary amount of pigment, and a normal watercolor artist would only need a little bit to go a long way. So my colors are a lot more vibrant, a lot more rich and dense than what a normal watercolor painting might look like, and I might have put too much on and just overlapped where I didn't need to overlap in some cases with that. So that might be why I'm running low on the black right now, because I use black a lot for mixing and making grays and more muted colors, which I did a lot of here, and I did a little bit of on the coloring book page. Yeah, but for $45 though, I would hope that these went a little bit further. That's just how I'm using them, though. I probably should just get a set of Copic markers and use those instead for creating vibrant colors, but it is what it is. I wanted to bring it up, and regardless, still though, I had a lot of fun working with these watercolor brush pens from Artademy. They're comfortable to hold, they're stupid easy to use, and I really, really like the results that I got out of them. The watercolor brush that came with it is nice, or not the watercolor brush, the water brush that came with this is nice too. It twists apart in the middle, and the middle then easily can be taken under a sink faucet and fills up really quickly. To put this in perspective, I only had to fill it up once between the Vader Fortress and the coloring book page, and there was an oversized coloring book page that I did too, and I used about 90% of the water that was in there. So it goes quite a long way, and that gives me some hope that there might be a lot of pigment inside, and material inside the pens as well, just because of how far that went. But I'm not really sure. Yeah, the pens had a really good flow rate, like I've said. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. If you have any questions about these watercolor brush pens from Artademy, let me know in the comments below, or shoot me a message if you want from my website at ktracy.com. You can also go there to check out the MS Paint comic and that coloring book that you see the page of here. I'm trying to create a community webcomic out of it. So if you finish a page of that coloring book, please, by all means, send it to me. And, via Twitter or DeviantArt or whatever, or Facebook or here on YouTube, share it with me, and we'll get that up on the community webcomic. So if you have any questions about this, by all means, please let me know. I like to make my videos entertaining and informative, so if I can help you make a more informed decision, I'm thrilled to do it. And again, if you like this video, please subscribe and like the video, and just help me grow this channel and produce more videos like this. I greatly appreciate your time, and I wish you all a great week.